How do you get results if you're out of state and have a negative, awkward mindset? You do the same things you would do if you're in state. That's how you get into state, is you do the things that the in-state version of you would do as much as you can, despite not being in state. So really think about that. So you're out of state, and what your brain is saying is, I don't want to go out. Well, if I was in state and I had a good mindset, what would I do? I would go out. So that's what you do, what the in-state version of you would do. And what happens, and there's different levels, but your emotions will catch up to your actions, not the other way around. This is a huge misconception, is the idea that, well, I don't feel motivated, so I'm not going to take action, right? I want to be a musician, but I don't feel motivated, so I'm only going to practice when I want to. Or I'm a writer. I've published multiple books. Did I want to write? Like, I wrote one book 8 hours a day. Did I want to write 8 hours a day? No. Not at first. Actually, eventually kind of did. I got into it. But a lot of times I would have writer's block, frustration. I would reread a passage and be like, this is fucking trash. I hate this. I can't write for shit. I'm never going to sell a book. I'm going to, just get furious, whatever. That's part of the process. But it's like, what would the version who becomes an author do? Well, he would just keep writing and go through the frustration, maybe not be able to write for a second, overthink, but just keep on the page, right? Just commit to the hours. And so I followed through with that, and then eventually you start to want to write because there's a momentum, because you start thinking of something, you finally get an idea, and then you're like, shit, that's a cool idea, and then you get into it, you get into a flow, right? And you enjoy it. So the same thing is true with cold approach when it comes to momentum. Thank you for saying I'm a good writer. I appreciate it. When it comes to going out, now you're in the venue, let's say. Well, the version of me that's in state, they would try to approach. They would see that girl and like start walking up to her. So you just, all right, I don't feel like doing that. My emotions are against that. But if you want to get into state and you want to get results, more importantly, I have to start doing the things that version of me would do, right? And so then you decide, all right, well, that version of me would go out and approach. Or you're already out, but that version of me would approach that girl. And so you try, and maybe you bitch out or you don't do it at some point. That's okay, but you at least like start walking towards her and you like try to get at least a compliment in and do something. You're moving in the direction. You're trying to align those two versions, the shitty excuse-making version and the successful version that is in state and pulls. You're wanting to align them, and so the way you do this is like take as much action that person would take rather than the action that the negative version of you that's getting in your own way would take, right? And then your emotions will shift in the direction of your actions and of your mindset. So that's what you want to do. And then eventually, it's like an hour later, you're approaching every girl, you're making out with someone, you pull, and you're in an amazing state because you were doing the things that version who was in state would do, right? What would the version of me, the best version of me, what would they do? And you just move as far towards that version as you can. And a great exercise you can do long-term for this is actually what helped me quit. I used to be, I'll admit it, a World of Warcraft addict. I used to play like 8 hours a day. Also a Halo addict. I played that like 8 hours a day. I was, if you know WoW, I was 2450 rated, which is roughly Gladiator. So pretty high. That's like the top 0.5% or something, I think. Anyway, I was huge nerd World of Warcraft. And the way I quit it was with an exercise that's kind of about this concept of the version you want to be versus the version you don't want to be, and creating an emotional anchor. So it's called the Dickens pattern. It was popularized by Tony Robbins. It was actually invented by some NLP guy who's not as famous. I can't think of his name. First, you think of a habit or a thing that you do or an outcome that you don't want in your life, and something you want to change, and something that's like really affecting your life. So if you're a video game addict, right, it was me, it was playing World of Warcraft. With game, it would be just not going out, not approaching, for example. And so what I did, or what you do, is you imagine, all right, in 1 week, what's going to happen if you continue down this path? Then in 1 month, and you visualize each one for like a minute or 2 minutes. Then in 6 months, then in a year, then 5 years, then 20 years, what's my life going to look like if I continue down the path of not taking the actions and getting the results I want? So with World of Warcraft, here's what I imagine. I took it extreme, and the key is to get yourself emotional and to get pissed off, to get sad, and feel a strong emotional response, because that's what creates the link in your mind to not want to do this, the negative anchor to not want to continue this behavior. So with World of Warcraft, what I did is I imagined myself working at like McDonald's because I was wasting all my days, all my time on this stupid video game. I imagine myself gaining weight. I imagine myself, getting obese. I imagine myself living in a disgusting room, like kind of like the South Park episode, just disgusting room with trash piled everywhere because I'm so lazy. You imagine yourself like what you look like, your body language, or just being very scrunched over, looking in the mirror and looking dead inside, like. I imagine having really bad anxiety because playing Warcraft did make my anxiety worse. So I just imagine panic attacks all the time. And then over the years, I imagine, all right, 10 years in, or the 5 year one, like, oh, I'm dating this like super fat chick because, I'm a video game addict. I don't have any options. That's all I'm spending my time on. So I end up in a toxic relationship with a fat chick. And I end up in fighting with her all the time. And I end up hating my life. And I end up depressed, all these things. Imagine that. And then I imagined, all right, if I quit, okay, well, if I quit, maybe I end up getting straight A's in college, which, funny enough, is what ended up happening. I quit and then I got straight A's in college. I imagine, okay, dating like attractive women because I'm spending more time going out and not just like in this video game living vicariously. I imagine myself, making more money, etc. Just looking more alive, enjoying my life, being more present, less anxiety, and extrapolated that to those different time frames that I just said. And so after doing that for, I don't know, maybe it was a week or so, I just felt this repulsion when I tried to play WoW, and I just didn't play again for years. I did eventually, like 3 years later, play for a bit, but I quit again. So that's the Dickens pattern. That's something that can be very helpful. Obviously, you can use that with attracting women. You just change and you really exaggerate it. So if you don't approach women, the worst that could happen, you end up like depressed, alone, jacking off, looking all sad and pathetic. Um, Imagine yourself dating some like super fat chick that you don't want to be with, who's like abusive to you, maybe even. And then imagine the 20 years like you have a kid with her, and the kid is a piece of shit because you settled for a piece of shit because you had no options and you didn't actually take risks, and you just, like, I'll take this fat chick is better than nothing. And, you imagine that life. And it might be an exaggeration of what would actually happen, but it might not. And thinking about that possibility just puts it in your brain that, okay, need to avoid these actions. And then, and negative anchors are more powerful than positive anchors because we have a negativity bias. I think it's just called the negative bias. You can look that up. There's tons of psychology about it, but we have to avoid negative things more than seek positive things because we lived in a very dangerous world back in the day where if you didn't eat, you would die, right? So that's more important than getting laid or something that you want, getting rich or whatever. It's just like actually surviving today. So that's a very useful exercise that I would recommend.